I slid the turkey into the oven at 11:30, brushed the skin with butter like I've done every November since my wife died, and let the house fill with sage and heat. Outside rain streaked the windows. Inside the table, linen lay ironed and flat, the good plates stacked by the sink. Nora and her husband Brandon weren't due until 4. That gave me hours to baste, to set the table, to be the sort of calm, older man people imagine when they say he's managing. The bell rang at 2:30. Through the frosted glass, 2 shapes hovered. When I opened the door, Nora wore that bright, over-helpful smile she uses when she wants something. Brandon stood behind her with a bottle of wine. Surprise. "We came early to help," Nora said, kissing my cheek and gliding past me. "Bathroom," Brandon asked already halfway up the stairs. "You know where it is," I said. He did. Nora trailed me to the kitchen and asked questions she'd never asked. "Do you keep the oven at 350 the whole time? Doesn't stuffing risk bacteria? Shouldn't we use a thermometer?" Her hands landed on a spoon, then a salt cellar, nervous energy disguised as help. Overhead, the floorboards creaked farther down the hall in my bedroom. A closet door opened and shut. "Should I set the table?" "I'll grab the tablecloth from the linen closet," I said, and started up the stairs, skipping the 3rd tread that groans. Halfway up, I heard Brandon's voice, low and excited, carrying just enough to sting Dad. "It's perfect. 3 bedrooms up here, big basement for your workshop. Couple of months and you'll be living here. The old man has no clue." I gripped the banister until it hurt. "Mom found a care place on the south side," Brandon continued. "Not fancy, but he'll be safe. $3,200 a month once we're not paying rent. We can swing that easy." My home had turned mid-sentence into a budget line. I stood there a long second, then stepped back down slow and careful, like a man who'd forgotten why he climbed the stairs. Back in the kitchen, Nora held a wine glass. "You look pale, Dad. Are you tired?" "Just hot from the stove," I said. Brandon came down and sat like a surveyor, eyes measuring. "You've really maintained this place, Harold? Must be worth a fortune." "I manage," I said. Dinner became a performance, Nora's hands on my sleeve. Brandon's comments about light and trim. They talked about my house like agents about a future without me. "Ever think about simplifying?" Nora asked, cutting her turkey into neat squares. "There are wonderful communities for active seniors now. Lots of support, less responsibility." "I haven't thought about it," I said, which was true for exactly that hour. I had been busy listening. They left at 7 with exaggerated hugs and promises to help. When the door closed, the house settled into its old quiet. I walked room to room, touching chair backs. In my office, I sat without turning on the lamp. The streetlight drew a thin gray rectangle across the wall. I didn't sleep. At dawn, I made coffee and stared at a photo on the shelf, a gap-toothed Nora holding a crayon drawing of this house. I remembered the down payment and those double shifts after surgery. My phone buzzed in the afternoon. "Hi, Dad," Nora said. "The stairs looked steep for you last night. Maybe we should talk about options." "I'm managing," I said. 2 days later, talk of a friend's father who loved his facility. The day after, a brochure in tasteful gold. Each message sounded like concern and slid the idea a little closer to inevitable. I drove to the library on Market Street because my home computer felt too visible. At a corner terminal, I searched ownership authority to sell notice timelines. My notebook filled with statute citations and dates. The house was in my name only. Mortgage cleared in 2009. Title clean. I could sell without telling anyone. If someone was living here 30 days, written notice would be required. On Thursday, I met with an attorney I found through the Bar Association. No family friends, no overlap. Mr. Pierce, he said, taking notes as I asked questions. Could I sell without informing my daughter? Yes. Could anyone stop the sale? No. Could a promise replace a deed? No. If occupants refused to leave after proper notice, Sheriff. At home, I cleared the dining table and unrolled a sheet of graph paper. At the top, I printed, Project Keep What's Mine. I drew boxes. Phase 1. Appear to consider their proposal. Let them believe I am weakening. 2 weeks. Phase 2. Quiet preparation valuation buyer search attorney. 3 to 4 weeks. Phase 3. Execute sale. Sign wire transfer, 1 week. Phase 4. Notify occupants, 30-day clock, instant. Phase 5. Disappear. New address, new routine. Permanent. I connected the boxes with arrows and contingencies. It looked like any plan I drew as an architect, only this time, the load-bearing walls were my dignity and legal right. 2 weeks before Christmas, I staged the house. I let mail pile in an honest scatter on the kitchen counter. I draped one string of lights over the mantel and left the tree boxed. When Nora and Brandon arrived on Christmas afternoon, I made sure to be halfway up the staircase, moving slower than usual, one hand on the rail. "Let me get that, Dad," Nora said, rushing past me. We ate roast. I sighed, standing up, and touched my lower back. The furnace rattled last week, I told them, between coffee and pie. 400 just for a visit. Stairs feel steeper lately. They traded a quick, bright glance. Brandon leaned back with practiced sympathy. "We've been thinking," he said. "There are great communities where you'd have help on hand. Less to worry about." I watched the steam rise. "Maybe you're right," I said. "Maybe it's time to consider my options." Nora clasped both my hands like we stood on a cliff, and I'd chosen not to jump. "We'll help with everything," she said. Anything. That night, when the dishes were done and the lights were out, I checked the plan again. The rain tapped the window like a metronome. I pictured Brandon pointing out where their couch would go. I pictured Nora texting, "He's open to it." I pictured the look on their faces when envelopes arrived bearing a law firm's return address. Betrayal is loud when you first hear it. Revenge prefers the hush of careful work. I sharpened a pencil and began my list. That night, the morning after Thanksgiving, I sat in my study with a cup of cold coffee staring at the rain streaking the window. Everything about my house suddenly felt different, too quiet, too heavy. My daughter's laughter from last night echoed in my mind, bright and false. They thought I didn't hear. They thought I was old. I opened my drafting pad, the same kind I'd used for decades as an architect, and drew a single word in the center: stability. Then I branched it out: legal timing, deception, execution, freedom. It wasn't just anger driving me, it was design. I started with legal. By noon, I was sitting across from Mark Whitfield, a real estate attorney who'd handled estate disputes for years. He didn't ask for backstory, just details. "My house," I said. "It's in my name. Can anyone prevent me from selling it?" He skimmed the deed. "You're the sole owner. No joint title, no liens. You can sell without notifying anyone. And if someone's living there," he adjusted his glasses, "30-day notice. That's all the law requires." I wrote the words down carefully. 30 days. The number felt like a weapon sharpened in my hands. When I left his office, the gray Seattle sky felt clearer. For the first time in months, I wasn't confused. I was calculating. That night, I called my daughter. I softened my voice, made it tremble just slightly. "Nora, I said I've been thinking about what you mentioned. Maybe you're right. Maybe a retirement community wouldn't be so bad." Her tone brightened instantly. "Really, Dad? That's great, I can help you look. There's one called Maple Grove, it's beautiful. Maybe after the holidays," I said. "Let's take things slow." "Of course," she said, relief in her voice. "Perfect. I just handed them exactly what they wanted: a false sense of progress. Phase 1 was complete. Let them believe they're winning. Phase 2 began with a phone call to Sylvia Grant, a discreet real estate agent known for off-market deals. We met in my living room 2 days later. She walked through the house taking notes. 3 bedrooms, solid foundation, modern kitchen. You'll get offers fast, she said. "I need a quiet sale," I told her. "No signs, no public listings." She raised an eyebrow. "A whisper sale, then?" I nodded. "Any urgency?" "Before spring," I said. She smiled. "Done. Cash buyers only." By the time she left, I knew she understood I wasn't downsizing. I was disappearing. For the next few weeks, I played my role like a tired old man. When Brandon, my son-in-law, visited, I pretended to forget what day it was. I left brochures from Maple Grove on the coffee table. He picked one up. "This place looks amazing, Dad," he said. I sighed, rubbing my back. "Maybe I'll visit after Christmas." He smiled. "We'll drive you." They were already picturing my empty house. While they plotted, Sylvia quietly brought a young couple through the back door one afternoon. They were software engineers, newly married, polite. They walked through every room admiring the craftsmanship. The next morning, they made a cash offer, full price, no inspection. I accepted before lunch. For the first time in weeks, I slept through the night. In the mornings, I started packing boxes, small things first. I said I was donating to charity when Nora asked about missing items. She praised me for decluttering. By late January, the sale documents were signed. The closing date was set. Phase 3 execution. My plan was simple. I'd tell them I was moving to Maple Grove, let them feel proud. Then I'd sell the house, give them 30 days to vacate and vanish before they realized what had happened. February came gray and wet. I met Sylvia at a coffee shop instead of home. She handed me a folder of documents. The sale's locked, she said. Buyer pays in full at closing. You'll have the funds immediately. I looked at the total $835,000. Clean, untouchable. You're sure it stays confidential? Absolutely, she said. Your family won't know until after closing. I thanked her. When I left, I stood under the awning, letting the rain hit the sidewalk. Across the street, people hurried under umbrellas, unaware of the quiet revenge taking shape among them. At home, I staged the final act. I left dishes unwashed, bills stacked unopened, lights left dim. I even let the thermostat drop a few degrees to make the air feel heavy. When Nora and Brandon visited, I moved slower, sighed louder. "Dad, are you okay?" Nora asked gently. "Just tired," I said. "This house feels too big." She glanced at Brandon, and that tiny victorious smile flickered. A week later, they brought over glossy brochures and retirement package pamphlets. I acted unsure, hesitant exactly what they wanted to see. "Maybe it's time," I said softly. Nora squeezed my hand. "We'll handle everything, Dad. You just focus on resting." I nodded. "Thank you. You've always been so thoughtful." They smiled, believing they'd won. I smiled back, knowing they'd already lost. That night, I opened my notebook and drew the final box around the word freedom. Under it, I wrote Phase 4, inform them. Phase 5, vanish. Then I added one last line at the bottom of the page, written in steady, deliberate strokes. They planned to erase me. I'll erase their plan instead. I closed the notebook, poured myself a fresh cup of coffee, and watched the rain slide down the window glass. The house around me felt lighter already, like it knew it was about to be free too. By early March, everything was ready. The sale contract was signed closing day, fixed for April 15th. I had 6 weeks left to play the frail old man while quietly dismantling the world they thought they owned. On the outside, I stayed polite and slow. Inside, I counted every move. They came for dinner one Thursday. "You shouldn't cook anymore, Dad," Nora said kindly. I smiled. "You've always looked after me." Brandon leaned back, eyes roaming over the room. "If you move, we could take care of the house. Keep it in the family." "That's generous," I said. "Maybe we should write it down." He laughed. "No need, we trust each other." "Exactly," I said. He didn't hear what I meant. Next morning, I visited the small apartment I'd rented in Fremont. 1 bedroom, a balcony over the canal, quiet. I unpacked a few boxes, documents, old watches, photos. Each trip there felt lighter. Back home, I left dishes in the sink and mail unopened. Let them see weakness, not strategy. 2 days later, I told Nora I've arranged a visit at Maple Grove next week. Her face lit up. "Really, Brandon can drive you." "They're sending a shuttle," I said. She looked relieved. "You'll love it there." There was no shuttle, no tour. That morning, I was sitting in my lawyer's office. Mark Whitfield went over the paperwork. "Once the sale closes, they'll have 30 days to leave. After that, you can file for eviction if needed." "Perfect," I said. He studied me. "You sure you want to go through with this?" "They made the plan," I said quietly. "I'm just finishing it." When I got home, their car was already in the driveway. They'd used the spare key. "Just helping you pack," Nora said. Brandon's footsteps creaked upstairs. "How thoughtful," I said, setting down my briefcase, the one holding the signed sale agreement. 3 days later, Brandon handed me a folder. "I drafted something for you. Makes things clear." It was a fake residence agreement saying they could live here to care for me. "Who wrote this?" I asked. "A friend who knows real estate." I nodded, signed it without hesitation. He blinked. "You're serious?" "If it makes you comfortable." He smiled proudly, never realizing the paper meant nothing. No notary, no witness, no power. Soon their boxes appeared in the garage. "Just storage," Nora said. "Of course," I replied. They stacked and labeled everything like new owners. At dinner that night, Brandon raised a glass. To new beginnings. I raised mine. 2 endings. They laughed. I didn't. That night, I reviewed my notes. Buyer confirmed. Funds secured. Notice drafted. Apartment ready. Everything aligned. Rain fell steady the next evening. They stopped by again, acting as if my life was already packed away. "You'll love Maple Grove," Nora said, "and we'll manage things here. You've planned it all I said." She smiled, believing she'd won. They left at 9. I stood by the window watching their car disappear through the rain. Almost time I whispered. Early April came gray and quiet. Sylvia, my realtor, called. "Closing confirmed," she said. "Funds release on the 15th. Should I send notices then?" "Yes," I said. "You sound calm." "I've had months to rehearse." The weekend before closing, I invited them for one last dinner. Roast chicken candles, polite talk. To family, Brandon toasted. I echoed softly to family. They smiled, not realizing I meant farewell. After they left, I washed the plates, feeling the house breathe easier. April 15th arrived cold and bright. I met Sylvia downtown, signed the papers, and shook hands with the young couple buying the place. "Congratulations, Mr. Pierce," the agent said. "The wire hit my account before I left the building. $835,000 clean final." Outside, drizzle brushed the city. For the first time in months, my chest felt light. That evening, I didn't go inside the house. I parked across the street and watched through the rain. Nora arranged flowers on the table. Brandon carried boxes upstairs. They looked happy, sure of victory. I sat in silence, headlights off. The home I'd built had already been sold, but they didn't know it yet. They'd wake tomorrow to the truth printed in formal black ink. The next morning, my lawyer mailed the certified letters. Notice to vacate 30 days. I could picture the moment Brandon signing for the envelope, Nora reading over his shoulder, both realizing they'd planned their lives inside a home they didn't own. They'd call, I wouldn't answer. The letter would speak for me, polite legal final. That night I packed the last of my things into the car. One suitcase, one photo of my wife smiling on that porch. I locked the door and stood for a moment on the steps. Inside, they were probably celebrating again, planning furniture placement, dreaming of renovations. I smiled. Tomorrow, they'd learn the difference between owning something and assuming they would. April 16th, dawned gray and silent. Somewhere across the city, a mail carrier placed 2 thick envelopes into my daughter's box, certified, stamped final. By the time she and Brandon opened them, I was already unpacking breakfast dishes in my Fremont apartment. I didn't need to imagine their reaction. I knew every stage of it: disbelief, confusion, anger, panic. That's the architect in me. I planned for every load, every crack, every collapse. Around noon, my phone began buzzing. Nora first, then Brandon, then again. 15 missed calls in an hour. I let them ring. At one point, I glanced at the screen long enough to read the message preview. "Dad, what is this? You sold the house. Please call." I didn't. By mid-afternoon, I knew they'd driven to the old place because my former neighbor Tom called. "Harold," he said, voice low, "your son-in-law's outside yelling. Looked like he was arguing with his in-laws." I smiled faintly. "Let me guess they had keys." "Yep, all 4 of them. The parents, too." "Keep your door locked, Tom. It'll settle soon." "Whatever you did," he said softly, "they look like they just found out gravity works." I spent that evening sitting by the window watching the lights of the canal. A kind of peace settled over me. Not joy, not cruelty, just balance restored. Meanwhile, in Ballard, chaos had its turn. Clyde, or rather Brandon, had opened the envelope standing in my kitchen. He'd probably thought it was junk mail from a bank. The first line would have drained the color from his face. Notice to vacate 30 days. Property sold April 15. New owners, the Chen Family Trust. He would have read it twice before shouting for Nora. Tom told me later what followed. Porter and Lydia Brandon's parents came running from the basement. Nora stood pale and shaking in the doorway. Brandon read the letter aloud, voice breaking halfway through. "This can't be right. He can't sell it. We live here." Porter snatched the notice. "That's impossible. We have an agreement." He meant the useless one Brandon had typed himself, the one I'd signed, knowing it meant nothing. "Call him," Lydia said. "He'll fix this." Brandon tried. My phone stayed silent. 10 attempts. Voicemail each time. Then they called my lawyer. That went about as well as expected. According to Tom, they spent that evening pacing the living room, shouting over one another. By the next morning, Brandon had driven to Maple Grove demanding to see me. Mr. Pierce doesn't live here, the receptionist told him. He moved in 2 weeks ago, he insisted. She checked the computer twice. I'm sorry, sir. No record of him. That was when reality started to land. He'd gone to my supposed nursing home and found a ghost. 2 days later, they showed up at the office of the strip mall lawyer who'd helped Brandon draft the fake agreement. He compared their paper to the county records and went pale. I have to be honest with you, he said. This document holds no legal weight. Mr. Pierce owned the property outright. He could sell whenever he wanted. There has to be something Nora pleaded. There isn't, the lawyer replied. No contract, no transfer, no fraud. You have 30 days to leave. When they stormed out, they were already planning to find another attorney. Desperation always looks for second opinions. I heard nothing directly for 3 days. Then the voicemail barrage began again. Brandon's voice, first pleading, then furious. Harold, this isn't right. We were helping you. You can't just throw family out like this. You'll regret this. Each message sharper than the last. Nora's tone broke my heart more quietly. Dad, please call me. I made a mistake. We didn't mean to hurt you. But she had, and meaning didn't matter anymore. Meanwhile, Brandon's parents faced their own collapse. They'd given notice at their old apartment in March, assuming the Ballard house was theirs. Now it wasn't. Every affordable unit nearby was full. Deposits, waiting lists, background checks, reality caught up fast. Eventually, they found a cramped 2-bedroom on the city's edge, double their old rent. Porter's savings vanished on deposits. Lydia, who hadn't worked in decades, took a part-time cashier job. Their perfect upgrade had turned into a downgrade they couldn't afford. By the end of April, the second lawyer told them exactly what the first had said: you have no case. Their agreement was worthless, the eviction valid. They could delay by filing motions, but each one would cost money they didn't have. They filed anyway. The court dismissed it within a week. That was the first night I slept soundly in months. On May 10th, Tom called again. They're moving out, he said. Trucks in the driveway, boxes everywhere. I thanked him, sat back, and let out a long breath. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt free. For months, they'd built their future on my property, assuming I'd hand it over out of guilt or weakness. They'd forgotten I spent 40 years designing buildings that stood through earthquakes. You don't survive that long without understanding how to build foundations and when to tear down what's rotten. When the 30 days ended, I walked past the old house one last time. It looked smaller. The new owners had already started repainting the trim. Through the window, I saw light and movement, a young family laughing over dinner. That's how it should be, I thought. A real home, not a trophy for opportunists. Back in Fremont, I made coffee and opened my window to the sound of rain. My phone lit up one more time, Nora's number. I stared at it until it stopped ringing. Then I turned it face down and whispered, "Lesson learned. Some debts aren't paid with money. They're paid with clarity." They'd wanted to erase me. Instead, they'd written their own ending. By mid-May, everything was quiet again. The eviction had gone through without resistance. The movers came, loaded the boxes, and left. When I walked past the house 2 weeks later, it no longer looked like mine. Fresh paint on the porch rail, new curtains in the windows. The new family had moved in. Children's bikes leaned against the fence where Nora once played. It felt right that laughter had replaced scheming. I stood on the sidewalk for a moment, then turned away. That chapter was done. Back in my Fremont condo, the space felt clean, light, uncluttered. 1 bedroom, a small balcony overlooking the lake. No ghosts, no expectations. I'd used half the sale money to buy it outright, the rest went to savings. Freedom in numbers and in peace. Each morning I brewed coffee and watched the sailboats drift across Lake Union. The air carried a different kind of silence, earned not lonely. June came with rumors. My neighbor Tom called. "Harold heard something about your daughter. You want to know." "Go ahead," I said. "They're struggling. Rent's sky high. His parents moved out of town, Idaho, I think." I thanked him. We talked about tomatoes and summer rain after that. I didn't gloat. It wasn't triumph I felt, just confirmation that the balance of things had returned to where it belonged. A week later, an email arrived from Nora. The subject line read, "Please, Dad. I know you're angry. I know we hurt you. Brandon said this would help everyone, and I believed him. Now everything's falling apart. His parents had to leave. We're behind on rent. Please, can we talk? I read it twice. Then I closed the laptop. Some doors once shut are meant to stay that way. July heat settled over Seattle. I joined a volunteer program for retired architects, helping community centers redesign their old buildings. It wasn't for money. It was to feel useful again. They paired me with a small nonprofit in Rainier Valley that needed a new multi-purpose room. The first day I stood in their worn-down hall, sketchbook in hand, I realized how much I'd missed the simple act of creating something honest. No manipulation, no hidden agendas, just a design that would help people gather. That night I slept better than I had in years. Occasionally I checked the old phone number I'd kept active. 70-plus missed calls from Nora. Dozens of messages, each one shorter, more desperate than the last. We can't keep up with rent. Brandon's looking for another job. I'm sorry, Dad. I really am. I stopped reading them halfway through. Guilt wasn't part of this anymore. They'd written their story. I'd simply declined to play my assigned role. Late July, I met Tom for coffee at the farmer's market. You look good, he said. Younger even. Peace will do that, I told him. He smiled. You know, most people wouldn't have handled it so quietly. Anger's loud, I said. Justice doesn't need volume. August brought a final message. Nora again. Dad, this will be my last email. We lost the apartment. I'm staying with a friend. I don't expect forgiveness. I just hope you're okay. I really did love you. I just lost my way. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I typed a single sentence. I hope you find peace, Nora. Take care of yourself. And that was all. The next weekend, I moved the last few boxes from storage into the condo. My wife's photo went on the mantle, the one where she's laughing with flour on her cheek, baking cookies with Nora as a child. That memory still belonged to me unspoiled. I brewed coffee and stepped out onto the balcony. Below, kayaks traced slow paths across the water. The skyline glowed gold in the evening light. This, I thought, is what survival looks like, quiet, steady, unremarkable to anyone else, but absolutely mine. Sometimes people confuse revenge with destruction. For me, it wasn't about destroying anyone. It was about rebuilding what they tried to take my dignity, my autonomy, my peace. They'd wanted me small and dependent. Instead, I'd built something larger in silence. I'd learned that protecting yourself doesn't make you cruel. It makes you free. In September, I presented the final drawings for the community center expansion. When the director saw them, she wiped her eyes. You've given us space for everyone, she said. That moment, simple as it was, felt like redemption. Not for them, for me. One evening near the end of summer, I walked by the water again. The air smelled of salt and pine. I thought about the long road from that Thanksgiving table, the whispering upstairs, the laughter, the betrayal to this calm. They'd built their scheme on greed and entitlement. I'd answered it with patience and precision. My revenge had never been loud. It had been exact. I finished my coffee, set the cup down, and turned off the light. Through the window, the city shimmered alive, indifferent, forward-moving. I'd once feared being forgotten. Now I understood the gift of it. Tomorrow I'd meet with the construction team. Next week maybe take a trip. My life finally belonged only to me, and that I realized was the truest victory. Thank you for listening to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Also, leave a comment below to share your thoughts on what happened. Take care.